Unfortunately, we had some technical difficulties this week that caused us to not be able to record, but that doesn't mean you guys lose out. This week's episode is a replay of one of our most downloaded episodes, our interview with Father Michael Butler. Some of you will remember that the Swole Father, as he's called, is not only a priest in the Orthodox Church, but also a bodybuilder. This is a great conversation about gratitude, faith, hard work, and the value of masculinity. We want you guys to sit back and enjoy this awesome conversation and know that we'll be back next week with some great new content. Welcome back to Untaming Masculinity, the podcast where we tackle issues relevant to men and their journeys to reclaim their masculinity. I'm Dan, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host and good friend, Brad. What's going on today?
Not much, man. My friend and I went to a Brazilian steakhouse last night. It's one of those all-you-can-eat ones where they bring out the meat on the skewers. And I ate way too much meat, and I'm feeling it this morning. But other than that, I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing pretty good. It's been a busy week. Lots of changes at work and at home in terms of my wife's got a promotion on the horizon here, and I've been filling out my team a little bit. So it's been a little bit of chaos, but a lot of fun. A lot of good things happening. So today we've got a special guest, Father Michael Butler. Father Michael has been a priest in the Orthodox Church for the last 27 years. During that time, he's been heavily involved in men's work, especially in the areas of rites of passage, masculine archetype, sacred space-time, and initiation. And we'll explore a lot of those on today's show. And he's also a bodybuilder. So that'll be something interesting to dig into. So welcome to the show, Father Michael.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So why don't we start with you just telling the guys a little bit about yourself, and then we can start to dig into some of the topics that we want to talk about.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. As you said, I am a priest in the Orthodox Church. I've been a priest for 27 years. It's my joy. I really love my work. I love especially working with young men. And for some reason, there's been this huge influx of young men into the Orthodox Church all over North America over about the past year or so. It's an interesting phenomenon as to why they're coming and what they're looking for and all, but I feel uniquely placed to help deal with it. I've done men's work and studied it for about 3 decades now. So I think between pastoral skills and my interest in men's work, I have something to say to them. I am married. My wife and I have been married for 37 years. I have 2 adult sons. I'm 61 years old now. So yeah, when you mentioned the bodybuilding thing, I hope your listeners are not imagining Arnold. I'm too old for that. You have to take into account that things get, don't work nearly as well the older that you get. But, I don't look bad for a 61-year-old man. And I found the Iron Council and have become much more involved in online men's work in about the last 3.5 years. My own involvement in online men's work has expanded since then. I'm also associated with Manifesto, which is a Scandinavian men's organization, the St. Paisios Brotherhood, which is an online Orthodox men's organization. And I'm looking to develop my own personal coaching practice to where I can bring sort of the unique skills that I think I have to a larger audience of men and do what I can to help men to become the best that they can be. And that's sort of like the bottom line with me. I just want to help men become the best that they can be.
See that's a fantastic story, and that's some really fascinating background. The question I have for you is what drew you to the priesthood? It sounds like you'd been married for a few years when that happened.
Oh yeah.
What was
no, I was in Orthodoxy you have to be married before you can be ordained. Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah, you can't be trolling your congregation for a wife. That's just
that makes sense. So, what did that journey look like for you?
I had it goes back to my childhood. I lost my dad when I was 8. Mama remarried, but that was sort of the primary trauma, in my childhood. And my stepdad was okay. And Mama said I put my nose in a Bible and never took it out, which I don't remember it being like that. I remember Mom was Catholic and I remember enjoying going to Mass. But when Dad died, Mama got mad at God and quit going to church. And I continued to want to go. My stepdad moved us out of the town I grew up in. We moved down to South Texas on the Mexican border. And I fell into a bad crowd and got to stealing from the school and got caught And I went to confession really for the first time in my life. I was 15 years old. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was February the 4th, 1975 at 4:55 in the afternoon. It was a Friday. And the confession I don't remember, honestly, except that I was on the verge of tears. And thank God the priest on the other side of the little screen realized he had, a young man on the edge, and he was very gentle with me. But I walked out of that church. And remember, this is South Texas, so it's semi-tropical. So, February the 4th is really pretty mild. It's about 60 degrees outside. And I walked down the sidewalk, and suddenly the entire world changed. The light went golden. I heard the sound that creation sings to its creator. Don't ask me to describe it. I couldn't begin to. And I knew in an instant that there was a God, that he was personal, and that he loved me. And it turned me inside out. And we're talking here today as a result of that one encounter. So, when you're a good little Catholic boy, if you want to be religious, you become a priest. And I had this burden on my heart that I really wanted to do that. Later on in college, I discovered the Orthodox Church my senior year in college and converted to Orthodoxy. And for a little while, the desire went away, but it came back. And so the whole priesthood thing, I think, is out of gratitude for one particular moment when God showed himself to me. And I seem to have done okay with it. My parishes grow. I have good rapport, with my people. And I think I have something to offer along those lines. And as I said earlier, I really enjoy my work. I love pretty much every aspect of it. I especially, not only standing at the altar and doing the liturgical part, when it's sort of big and public and beautiful, but one-on-one with people over a cup of coffee or a good craft beer. I do excellent work one-on-one like that. And really to have the freedom in the week to sit down with people like that and hear about their lives and see what support and help I can offer is really one of the greatest joys that I have.
I loved how you said that this is all that you've done is out of gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
That was beautiful. So obviously you had mentioned a little earlier, and this is something I kind of want to dive into, is how you've mentioned that there are a lot of young men that have joined the Orthodox Church in the last year.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any idea as to why? Like, do you have any theories, any suspicions?
Yeah, there are some common themes for what they're doing. And like I say, I've got maybe 24 in my congregation. I know our cathedral in Dallas has got over 40. Wow. I talk to priests around the country. They're like coming out of the woodwork all over the place. And I think it's a combination of things. One is that they're looking for truth with a capital T. And Orthodoxy is known for being, real hard-ass Christian faith. If you want the Marines of Christianity, you come to the Orthodox. That's just it. We had no Reformation. We didn't really do the Enlightenment, or the modern project. So a lot of what we do, is very archetypal and a very old understanding of things, which has a lot of depth and there's a lot of meaning to everything that we do. So I think they're looking for truth with a capital T. They're looking for structure, which we have in abundance. They're looking for stability because we don't change. The old joke, how many Orthodox does it take to change a light bulb? Change? For us, it's glacially slow, which is, both a blessing and a curse. But, they're tired of churches that are either in step with the times or 5 minutes behind the times, panting to catch up. Okay. And that is not us. And I think also, they're looking for, like I say, truth with a capital T, but some real depth in meaning and a Christian expression that asks something of them. And Orthodoxy is really rather demanding on what we ask of people. And they just revel, particularly in the structure and in finding a rule of prayer that they keep every single day, and the cycle of services and the cycle of fasting and being accountable to a spiritual father. It's much more personal, the relationship with the pastor, than it is in most Western Protestant and Catholic confessions. And also, I think they're all like between 25 and 35, maybe. And I think it's part of a larger issue in their lives where they realize that 15 to 20 years of smoking weed, playing video games, and jerking off to porn is not a real good preparation for life. And so they're coming out of late adolescence into early adulthood, and they realize they don't have the skills they need. They don't know how to talk to women. They don't know how to have a good relationship with a woman. They're, crippled with college debt, or, they're not financially stable enough yet. So they see a lot of lack in themselves, and they're looking to turn over a new leaf, to have a new beginning, to make a new start. And in part, if they have a religious sentiment or a sense, they come looking for a church that will meet that as well. So a lot of the work that I do with the young men is not just religious education and spirituality and stuff, but it's a lot of the same kind of life lessons that we talk about in the Iron Council. It's accountability, it's structure, it's getting your shit together. For the young ones who are still at home living in the basement, you need to get out and get a job and that sort of stuff. And they eat it up. And because I have so many, they form their own community. So there's a lot of spontaneous mutual support for them. And they're finding a good environment where they can grow, and begin to feel really good about themselves. And it happens over and over and over again. It's a great joy and a real blessing to work with them.
That's really interesting. The fact that the word structure you hit on a couple times, and I think that is, I think you're onto something there in terms of the fact that where we are in the world with men, especially, that there is not a lot of structure early on. No. And by presenting this in a facet of life where they can, for lack of a better term, kind of compartmentalize it at first, and just be present in the church and have that structure, and then be able to use that to build it outwards into the rest of their life, is a really strong motivation. So I think that's pretty cool.
Thank you. It seems to be working.
Yeah,
and I think you're right. Even from the architecture of an Orthodox temple. They're varied, but there is kind of a standard format that very much makes you feel like you have a place, and you are in the right place. And when you are in the correct place, the church is built like a microcosm. So, Christ is up in the dome in the heavens, and there are the angels up there, and then the icons of the saints on all the walls, and we stand on the floor. But when you find your correct place in an Orthodox temple, it helps to situate you spiritually and psychologically in the right place in the world. And it helps to constellate and solidify the personality a little bit. You just feel at peace, and you feel yourself when you're in there. And everything that we do sort of helps to reinforce that, and to get back to who is, the natural man that we're created to be, which we'll touch on again later.
So what's so fascinating about that to me, Father Michael, is there are these men, these young men, where we grow up in a society where we're told it's okay to live a godless life. It's okay to watch porn. It's okay to smoke a lot of weed. And all of these men find themselves almost devoid of purpose. And it seems as if they're finding their way to church, back to God, to find that purpose. And that to me suggests that is a divinely, masculinity and manliness are divinely created attributes. These are things that God has instilled in us.
Yep. And not just in sort of a simplistic way. I think you're absolutely right on an ontological or a hardware kind of level. Because when you're talking about looking for meaning and for purpose, by and large, it's because most young men are, like, we all started out as hedonists and narcissists. We're all wrapped up in ourselves. And eventually life requires us to turn our attention outward. And I think the difference between an immature and a mature masculinity is precisely that a mature masculinity is there. First of all, our masculinity is gifted to us by God, but we in turn give our masculinity, and our masculine gives outward to the rest of the world. And that's the point where they're coming up short. They're not offering their lives as a gift to other people, and they're tired of sort of the self-centeredness of it. And they know it's not enough. They know they have something to give. They know they want to give something. They know they have value to provide to the world or to other people, and they don't know how to do it. And I think that is very much hardwired into us. Yes, God himself is giving, and superabundant goodness, to use one of the classical terms for that. But we're designed to be giving. And if you think about it, if I can say very Christian terms, two great commandments: love of God, love of neighbor. That takes your attention off yourself and puts it on God and on your neighbor. And when you can get your attention off of yourself and quit living just for yourself alone, but for living for others, that's where real meaning comes in. Maybe you find a woman, you get married, you get stretched a little. Now you have to put up with a wife, and then eventually you decide you want children. And now That's real hard for some guys, but it stretches our heart a little more, and so now instead of just living for ourselves, we live for our wives, we live for our kids, and then this funny thing happens. Your kids get to be up 4 or 5 years old, and next thing you know, you start wanting to be a scoutmaster, or you start wanting to coach little league or soccer. Next thing you know, caring for your own kids isn't enough. Now you care for everybody else's kids. And I think it's part of God's design to take us out of our self-focused, narcissistic, egotistical little selves when we start out young, and to dilate our hearts out until eventually, maybe, by the time we get to be old, we can love everybody, even equally, which is, I think, what God wants us to do. And so I think it's even hard baked into the progress of most men's lives that we learn to do that through the ordinary course of growing up and settling down. But it's genuinely true. All of these young men, they're desperate for something to do. They want to matter. They want their lives to matter. They want their lives to have meaning. They know they've got to give something, and too often they're kind of lost as to what they have to offer, how they can give it. So if I can get them turned away from themselves and turned outward, even if it's just finding something small to do in the church. I had this young man show up 3 weeks ago on Sunday. Brand new, not Orthodox. First time he stepped into an Orthodox church, pie-eyed. They have a beautiful temple that's completely frescoed from floor to ceiling. I have a large choir of about 24 people. They just sound magnificent. So the whole thing is just big and loud and beautiful. And as Dostoevsky says, beauty will save the world. And we're going to lead the charge on that one. They just bowled over by what he saw. And of course, some of my other young guys saw, fresh meat. And they went over and they grabbed him, and they pulled him over to the group of young men and all. And he stuck around for coffee hour. He sat down at the table with the other young guys. They're just chatting up a storm. Coffee hour is over. And I find this guy. He's in the kitchen washing dishes now, cleaning coffee cups and all. And I thought, this is it. He came looking for something. He found a place to give. Of course, he was back the next one. If you find places for guys to plug in and give them, even if it's washing dishes, they've got something to contribute, and they're better for it. Sorry, I get excited about this stuff.
No, that was incredibly inspiring.
Yeah, that was really inspiring. I was actually going to ask you how you harness these guys and kind of get them into the mindset of giving back, but that was a beautiful example of how it almost happens innately.
It happens kind of spontaneously, and I've talked enough. Some of the young men who have been around for a couple or 3 or 4 or 5 years, I've sort of tried to say, keep your eyes out for the new guys. Y'all are the ones who are going to shepherd them. You're the ones who are going to stand in the church. You're going to see them. So you loop them in, you bring them to coffee hour, you find them a place to plug in. And, it takes a huge burden off of my shoulders to do it. And again, then the other young men, now that's their job. They're watching out for the new guys and they're stepping up and helping them. So when it's peer to peer like that, it works even better because I'm paid and ordained to be nice to new people, right? It's my job. And so even though I can do it, it seems more authentic when somebody who's not paid and ordained to do it does it. So, yeah, it's been working real well for us.
There were several light bulb moments as you were going through those various scenarios that I've seen in my life. And it draws us back. Everybody who's a first-time parent, you're always told you'll never know true love until that baby's put in your arms. You feel that. That's one of the first, obviously, the day you get married, you start to feel you need to love and provide for somebody else. You need to forget about yourself. When that baby who's innocent and wholly reliant on you is put in your arms, you see a lot more into that window. And it's interesting to see that evolution and how it applies elsewhere in men's lives. And I think of us in our work in the Iron Council. Once you've been in the Iron Council long enough, you stop focusing on yourself and you become very focused on the outcomes of the other men around you.
That's right. And that's why I'm still there. It was the way it was put to me when I first joined. You come for yourself, but you stay for the others.
Yeah,
and It's been absolutely true. I won't say I don't get anything out of the Iron Council. I get less sort of personally because, like I said, I've been around for nearly 3 years, and a lot of the kind of basic work that we emphasize, I've been able to do. And I was doing some of it before I joined the IC anyway. But get myself into a mentor's position where I can help out some other teams, where I can work with some other battle team leaders, where I can still help out on my own battle team. There's the real reward. And there are more and more, again, younger men who are coming in who are still sort of figuring stuff out, still trying to find a vision for their life, still working on a mission or something. And every so often, a little elder wisdom can drip through and offers them a leg up. So it's immensely gratifying to watch. My own younger son joined the Iron Council. He was in this last cohort that just started. He just got onto a battle team a couple or 3 weeks ago, and he's loving it. I couldn't be prouder. Just because I know the benefit that it will have from the accountability and the camaraderie with other men. It's a huge blessing. Most men, we forget, those of us who are in good communities and good battle teams like what we have, we forget how few men in the world have a good group of men that they can rely on, that they can open their hearts to, that have their back. And so many don't have that. And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
That's a powerful message too. We talk about it a lot on the show about how, there are a lot of men in the world who try to go the lone wolf mentality, the lone wolf way. And having a group of men who you can be solely reliant on, and they're reliant on you, and you form that pack. Mm-hmm. It is just such a strong way to grow as a man. And you talked about how you've got your new guys in the church who are looking for fresh blood, and that speaks exactly to that premise of just building that core group, building that pack of men who are just going to be relying upon each other and who have each other's backs. It's, as a man, it's such a strong feeling to know that somebody else is there for you, and that you can be open with them and you can share with them, and you don't have to always have the big tough guy persona that you can bear the brunt of the world on your own two shoulders, and that's it. So we
try. Men try until it fails. Yeah. We can do it for a little while.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm always drawn to Christ. I mean, Jesus Christ, when he was on this earth, he intentionally sought out disciples. He needed men to walk with him. He needed these men as well. So if he needed them, we sure do.
Yeah. But again, to ask for help, see, and there's a thing, because it requires an admission of weakness or an admission of need. Yeah. And a lot of guys are just too afraid to let down the guard even that much and say, hey, buddy, I could use some help with this. Because too often, for a lot of guys, they see a weakness and they go right after it. And so a lot of men have been burned and hurt. I have too, unfortunately, and opening my heart in circumstances where I thought I could trust other men around me and discovered that the trust was misplaced. Sometimes, there are guys who get burned too badly and just can't open up or won't, out of fear of being betrayed again. But if you can get past it, we're not designed to do this alone. First thing that God said was not good was for men to be alone. And if y'all are both married, then you know that there are some things that it's best that we don't take to our women. Yeah. And it's best if we have another guy that we can talk to and go sit down and hack this out with another guy rather than take it to our wives. And we function much better that way. Straight out of, Jack Donovan, The Way of Men, talking about his, what was it? It's not quite a tribe, the little clan, the little group, the war band, I forget the word he uses, is the optimum group for men, which is about 8 to 15, which is why we set up our battle teams that way.
Mm-hmm. That's really fascinating. One interesting tidbit that I've been drawn to as you've been speaking is in my church, there's a men's group, and within that men's group, there's a leader who got up one day and he was sharing a lot of this message. Men, we need each other. Men, if you look to the guy to your left, the guy to your right, you don't know what they're going through. So he's made a point every Sunday for us to intentionally spend some time to go out and meet these men within our group that we've yet to introduce ourselves to. And he said it very succinctly. He's like, men, the reason I'm having you do this is because I'm going through hard things in my life, and I know that I need you. Because I've made this realization, I'm sure there are lots of men in this same room who need that. Mm-hmm. They feel alone. They feel as if they have burdens that they can't overcome, and they don't know where to begin to go to address that. So many men are scared of being, we hate the term vulnerable, but you're exposing a part of your soul that can seem intimidating. It can seem scary. It's like, what if I put myself out there and somebody rejects me? Yeah. And the act of doing that and learning to become comfortable with that is really the foundation, in my opinion, of brotherhood.
Yeah, because it's an immense amount of trust. And if you can find a group of men with whom you can be intimate, and I mean that in a heart way, not a physical way, It's a pity you have to qualify that nowadays. But whom you can open your heart to and precisely be vulnerable is a group that you know that you trust enough that you will not be ridiculed, you will not be shamed, you'll not be laughed at. And have a group of men that you can be around like that and take just about anything. And it grows with time and it grows with practice. I mean, even in my own ministry, I know I've pastored 3 churches, and in every case, it's been usually 3 to 5 years that I'm there before people will really begin to open up, like in confession, for example, and tell me what's really going on. It just takes a while to establish the trust that you have. And so the longer you can be with a group of guys, the better it is. And to see how well our battle teams on the Iron Council function, though I've seen guys, 3 meetings in, 4 meetings in, and they're already spilling their guts. And it points to the fact of how desperate men are for a forum where, a safe space where they can do that, and the trust that they have in the other men in the team. It's just a beautiful thing.
Let's change gears a little bit. I want to know a little bit about your bodybuilding journey. We can get back to the religious stuff here in a minute, but I'm curious to see what kind of got you down that path, and maybe how you even tie it into the work that you do.
Okay. I'm going to date myself here. I don't know if you guys, I read comic books as a boy. Do you remember the Charles Atlas ads in the back of the comic, but the guy getting sand kicked in his face? Yep. Okay. That's what got me. I was about 8 years old. And I said, I want to look like that. And I always thought it was beautiful. But after my dad died, I was kind of the depressed kid, and I gained a lot of weight. So I was the fat kid, the awkward kid, the kid who almost failed 2nd grade because he was so uncoordinated he couldn't jump a rope. The kid who was always picked last for team sports. I don't like team sports to this day. Okay. Awkward and all. And so I always wanted to look good like that. And I was intimidated. I'd gone to gyms at different times, and, nothing quite clicked. And, the really big guys were just absolutely intimidating and scary to me. And it was kind of hard to be around, which, is my own poor self-image and all. And then in middle age, I was the middle-aged guy who would join the gym, who was on the elliptical and never lost any weight, who would pump iron but never got any stronger. And I was just sort of there, and I sort of resolved, well, maybe that's how it is. And until I got to be about 53 years old. And I decided I wanted to get in shape when I was 20, 30, 40, and 50. And by God, I'm going to regret something else when I'm 60, but it ain't going to be this. So I told my wife, I'm going to do something about this. And I found this guy online, one of those 12-week transformation challenges sort of things. He was just starting out, but he was a fellow Texan like I am. And I said, okay, this is a good old boy, so I'll trust him. I think it cost me $300. But he wrote out the workouts, he wrote out the diet. I got it all on Excel spreadsheets, what I could eat, how much, put it all in, all the numbers, calculated out for me and everything. And for the first time in my life, the fat started coming off, and by God, I started getting stronger at the gym. And I lost about 13 pounds with him over 12 weeks, and it ended. And I said, I wonder how far I can take this. I work real well with a deadline. So I said, I'm going to do a contest. They had just come out with this thing called Men's Physique, where you can wear board shorts. Mm-hmm. And I figured I could probably do that. So I said, who around here does coaching, for contests? And one name came up. And I found Rainey, and he runs most of the contests in Michigan. And so I went down and I said to him, I said, this is, what can we do? And he told me, I can't guarantee that you'll win, but I can make sure you look like you belong on stage. And I said, that's fair enough. So we picked the very last contest of the year, which was, I think, like November 4th. We had like 5 months. And he wrote my workouts. He gave me my diet. Ultimately, in the course of 10 months, I lost 40 pounds. I lost 8 inches off my waist. I went from 23 to 8% body fat. During the course of this, my self-confidence, all of the women in my life quit giving me so much shit, and I got a lot more respect from the men. Had I known that would be one of the first benefits, I might have done this decades ago. It was incredible. And so it was absolutely life-changing for me. So I told my coach, I don't need to win. I just don't want to be last. and I was 5th out of 6. And so I did not come in last, but I got bit by the bug. I loved the prep. I loved the contest. I loved hanging with the guys backstage. And so I started competing. So over the last 8 years, I competed 11 times. I lost my second show. I was last third. My third show. I was last in my 4th and 5th, and I think my 6th show. But 7, 8, 9, and 10, I won. I was winning state level shows. Granted, geezer category. You have to understand. This is not open. I'm not competing with the young bucks. This is old guy category. But I could hold my own. And so even a year ago, last September, I went to nationals for the first time, where I came in 3rd and 6th, or last and last. But I qualified and went to a national level bodybuilding contest. And I gradually went from men's physique to classic physique to actual bodybuilding, which is where I'm happy to compete. And so since I was not quite big enough to go to nationals, Coach and I decided we'd take a whole year off where I would do what I could to put on as much size as I can, which, as I say, at 61, it's glacially slow at this point. But I see a little bit of improvement, and I occasionally hit a PR in the gym still, so that's okay. And so I'm in prep now. I'm off season. I have just over a year before I'll go back, and I have to qualify at a state level show. And then I will go to nationals probably September of next year, and we'll see if I can win. And if I do, I get my pro card, which will be like a lifelong dream. Wow. So that's it. I use it for, I'd spent so much time in my head. I'd gone and gotten a PhD in church history. I love to study. So I'd done a lot of stuff in my head. I've done a lot of work spiritually, but I'd never done a lot of work physically. And so for me, it was sort of a whole, aspect of life that I'd never really emphasized very much. And I found I really liked sort of the groundedness and the embodiment sort of aspect. I tell you what, it's real hard to concentrate on life problems when you're deadlifting 315 pounds. So it focuses the mind. And somehow you come out of doing that and you're just a little calmer and life's a little sweeter. And, I found I really enjoyed it. So I like the process. I like working out. I like pumping iron. And it's not just, the contest prep. God, I get crotchety and the diet is murderous. And, I get literally starved to perfection. This is beyond dieting for those contest guys. This is a controlled starve. Yeah. And it's murderous to do, but I can do it. And I gotten down to 5.5% body fat, wow. Which is incredible for a former fat boy. So it can be done if you want to do it, but it's a hell of a lot of dedication. And I just sort of use it as my ascetical discipline. It's just another discipline thing that I do every day. I go to the gym. I have a progressive workout. I try very hard to hit my numbers, not to miss any days at the gym. It's on my battle plan too. So I have further accountability that way. But man, I just love it. And the way it fits into to my ministry, I get all these young guys lift, okay, or most of them do. And so when they read on, it's in my bio on my parish website, that if I'm not at the church or not having coffee with someone, I will be at the gym pumping iron. And they see that and say, I can talk to this guy. Yeah. So, they come in and, one of the first things I see some young buck come in and I'll say, bro, do you even lift? You gotta come to church and you've got to lift, And so, okay. And, the fact that I can say that to them, it's an instant rapport. We already have something in common. And we talk as much about pumping iron at coffee hour as we do about spiritual stuff. And in addition to that, there have been 2 men, one in my parish and one outside, who have each lost over 100 pounds because of my witness. And I had a 73-year-old grandma who started going to Planet Fitness a couple of years ago because she saw how much better I felt and was. And it was just a witness. So I've helped. Actually, and those are just the ones that come immediately to mind. I know there are a lot of people who have improved their lives physically and improved their health and their mental health as well because of the witness that I've given.
There is so much to unpack there. That's an awesome story. The word structure again comes to mind. You talked early on in that about how the programming and the diet and all that, and that is something that men, again, we crave structure. We crave a challenge. We crave a deadline, and the ability to use it as a tool to facilitate conversation and relationship with other men, I think is a strong a strong tool in your arsenal.
Yeah, it's worked really well, particularly with the demographic that's coming to the church now. It won't always be that way. I do have a number of people in the church who find it absolutely unthinkable, to imagine me, who's usually in, floor length full cassock or floor length vestments, wearing a little scrap of spandex. And for them, it's too much of a jump, and they really don't want to hear about it. So I say almost nothing about my workouts or my competition in church. It doesn't come up in sermons or anything like that. But when I find one-on-one, when I find some young guy or someone else who I know works out, say, Father, how's the workouts going? Mine's going great. You hit that deadlift PR that you were working on? Yeah, I did. And it's just another way of linking up with guys. And you can see, no, you don't have to be an emaciated, 40 days on bread and water, kind of Christian in order to follow.
Yeah. We spent a lot of time talking a lot about the symmetry and there are a lot of parallels with getting in shape and taking care of yourself and what it means to be a good man. We espouse this idea that it's pretty paramount and pretty vital to really truly being a great man. And you're an incredible testament of that. And the biggest takeaway of all of that is there were so many times in your life you could have said, I'm just the fat boy. I've just committed my life to the priesthood. I don't need to take care of myself physically. You easily could have told yourself that. You were never complacent. You started at 53 years old, which is incredibly inspiring.
Thank you.
Never too late.
Yeah. And the story on that is, guys, follow your dreams early. It's become a refrain with me. I think my battle team's tired of hearing me say it. Failure is pretty damn bitter, but regret is 10 times worse. And don't put off your dreams, until you're too old to follow them. I look back, it's sort of hard for me to go to the gym these days because almost all of my friends who compete are all competing this year. So they're all in contest prep. They're shredded, man. You can see their hearts beat through their shirts. They're so lean, and they just look absolutely fantastic. And I go in, and granted, I'm pretty damn strong right now, but I look like a potato. Just old, gray, fat, and ugly is kind of how I feel a lot of times. And I just have for myself, no, had I started at 20, had I started at 30, I could have looked like that, so you just learn to thank God that he's made people beautiful and that, your friends are able to do as much as they can. And you try to be grateful about it, as well, and not be envious. Yeah.
I'll say this about Father Michael too. He's being pretty humble with regards to his looks and his strength. If you follow him on Instagram, you know that he's putting up some pretty good numbers. And I say this with all due respect. It's old man goals for me in terms of what you're doing in the gym. So
there you are. Yeah, I did. I rarely try for PRs because my coach has drilled into me at my age, the tendons get a little brittle and the risk of tendonitis is really great. So never do anything for less than 5 reps. If I can't get 5 reps, don't lift the weight. And that's typically what I do. But I was feeling really good about a month ago. So I hit a PR on deadlift. I did 375 and I hit a 255 bench. And I thought, all right, that's like 10 pounds better than when I tried a year ago. And they both looked almost easy. So I'm sure I could do more, but
that 375 deadlift looked real easy.
Yeah, it was really bad form. And I'm embarrassed by how bad my form was, but damn it, it's a PR. I've got to post the picture anyway. And sure enough, I have 2 coaches, one who does my contest prep and one who writes my workouts. And the one who writes my workouts is a power lifter with holding national records. Mm-hmm. He's also a medical doctor in Chicago. And he saw that and he said, we need to have a video chat. That was awful. So I got a video call with him and he went over a good deadlift form. So I never do that again.
Oh man, that's amazing. And I don't know, as I think of all this coming full circle, here you are spending time in the gym to make you a better man, a better husband, a better father to not only your children, but also to your congregation. Mm-hmm. And that in and of itself is the very definition of masculinity. How you continually raise the bar for yourself so that you can give unto others so that they hopefully can in turn go and do the same.
Oh yeah, that's it. You put it well. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Brad, you got anything else for
No, this
conversation here?
This has been an enlightening and inspiring, just fun conversation. So
Absolutely.
Michael, thank you.
I really enjoyed this, Father Michael. Thank you for joining us.
This was fun. Thanks for asking me on.
So we're going to wrap up the show here. Thanks again, Father Michael, for joining us. We will have show notes posted on untamingmasculinity.com, where you can find links to anything we mentioned in this show, as well as all of our other shows. We'll also have contact information for Father Michael. Just so you guys know, he's got a great YouTube channel, or not YouTube, Instagram channel, Average to Alpha, AVG, the number 2 Alpha. That's fun to follow. He's got a bunch of reels on there that I enjoy on an almost daily basis. So definitely check him out there. And then you can also check us out. You've got the Untaming Masculinity Instagram, as well as Brad and I's personal. So reach out to us, hit us up, let us know how what you liked about this episode and what we can do to improve it. Otherwise, we ask that you go to your podcast player and just leave us a rating and review. If you really liked it, give us 5 stars. If you hated it, let us know too. That'll help us improve. Other than that, we thank you guys for listening, and we'll leave you with just one question. What are you doing to untame your masculinity?